Flow have arrived at a moment when R&B girl groups felt almost like a memory, something from the era of TLC, En Vogue, All Saints, Destiny's Child, and the Spice Girls. For years, that lane seemed empty, and then Flow stepped into that space, deliberately, confidently, not as an imitation of the past, but as a revival with purpose. Their music carries the warmth and soul of the 90s and early 2000s, but without the museum glass feeling. Instead, it sounds alive, modern, and completely their own. The trio of Jorja Douglas, Renée Downer, and Stella Quaresma formed in London in 2019. Their breakthrough came in 2022 with the single Cardboard Box, a track that went viral online and instantly resonated with listeners. Strong harmonies, relatable lyrics, and songwriting rooted in classic R&B traditions announced Flow as a group determined to bring genre's girl group spirit back into the mainstream. In 2024, Flow released their first full-length studio album, Access All Areas, a 16-track project featuring collaborations with Cynthia Erivo and Glorilla. The album showcased their versatility, polished harmonies, layered vocal production, delicate ballads, confident mid-tempos, and sharp breakup anthems. In December 2025, Flow released an expanded edition of the project, Access All Areas Unlocked, adding 4 new tracks. Recently deleted, Do Too Much, Say Less, and Conceited. This updated version marked both a continuation and closing chapter of this era, arriving just as the group prepared for their first ever appearance at the Grammy Awards, where the album was nominated for Best Progressive R&B Album. Each member brings a different background and musical identity. Stella Quaresma was born in Kingston upon Thames and spent part of her childhood in Mozambique before returning to the UK at the age of 5. She later studied at the Sylvia Young Theatre School, where she met Renée. Stella grew up surrounded by African music from her father, while her mother introduced her to artists like Etta James and Amy Winehouse, influences that helped shape her soulful tone. Jorja Douglas was born in Eastern Germany and moved to Hertfordshire as a baby. Raised on classic R&B, her mother loved. She developed a deep connection to the genre early on. Before Flow, she even won the CBBC talent competition Got What It Takes and briefly worked at an accounting firm. A surprisingly grounded beginning for someone now standing on major stages. Renée Downer, born and raised in North London, also attended the Sylvia Young Theatre School, where her friendship with Stella began through their shared love of singing. She grew up listening to R&B, house music, and church gospel, and before joining Flow, she worked at H&M on Regent Street. The 3 members often say that their childhood listening shaped not only their musical tastes, but also their approach to identity, friendship, and artistry. Renée's mother played Alia and Tiara in the car. Jorja grew up immersed in old-school R&B. Stella's household blended African rhythms with soul and jazz icons, and together those influences created a sound that feels familiar, yet unmistakably new. Their music mixes smooth early 2000s energy with shimmering guitar melodies and dancehall-leaning rhythms. To reinforce that lineage, Flow even collaborated with Missy Elliott, one of the true architects of R&B's history. One of the key creative forces behind their music is producer and songwriter Mnek, with whom the trio worked closely in the studio. Their song, recently deleted, marks the symbolic closing of the Access All Areas chapter, a reflection point as Flow step into a new phase of their career. And while some listeners note that Flow don't yet have a massive American breakthrough, that isn't necessarily a flaw or a failure. The group's label clearly sees the US as a major growth market, but Flow's foundation remains deeply rooted in the UK scene, even if British audiences historically haven't always embraced R&B girl groups as strongly as pop-focused acts. Interestingly, it's often American listeners who recognize the tradition Flow are reviving, which places the trio in a unique cross-cultural space. Flow exists within a lineage, from earlier R&B icons to modern reinterpretations, yet they never feel like a tribute act. Their debut era proves that R&B girl groups are not relics of the past. They are a living, evolving part of today's music landscape. While we wait to see how Flow's Grammy journey unfolds and what their next musical chapter will sound like, I also recommend checking out another video on my channel where we talk about Little Mix and what happened to each of the members after the group split up. It's a fascinating follow-up story about how girl group legacies continue to evolve in modern pop.